3, 2, 1, live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 4th webinar series of the Seamless East Africa sessions. Today we have a 60-minute panel discussion entitled Realising the AI and ML Opportunity in the BFSi Sectors. We're lucky to be joined by 4 industry experts on the panel today who've kindly agreed to share their expert insights. So joining us as panelists, we have Russell Akoum, who is the Head of Digital Banking Experience at the Co-operative Bank of Kenya. Robert Ochieng, who is a digital transformation champion, also from Kenya. In a slight change to program, stepping in for Jacqui Stewart, we have Samantha Kiru, who is the lead business translator at I&M Bank. And moderating the session for us today, we have Chidi Okpala, who is the CEO of Asante Financial Services. So in a moment, I'd like to hand over to Chidi so that we can get started. Before I do that, can I ask all of our panelists to turn on their microphones? And whilst everyone does that, please can I remind all webinar attendees that you can ask questions throughout the panel session and our panelists will do their best to answer them. So without further ado, Chidi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julia. And good morning all. AI is the engine of the what I call the new world order, which is the new digital world that we've all found ourselves in. Some say it's creating the single most transformational revolution in the world as seen today. You know, as a concept, all it does is just to stimulate and augment human intelligence, and that's simply what it does. And it's evolving, and we've seen its application across several industries. And the financial services industry is not left behind as we enter what I call the intelligence age. In Africa, we are currently seeing a rapid evolving of the digital financial services landscape, driven not only by mainstream commercial banks, but also non-banking institutions like telcos, like fintechs, retailers, and the like. And its application is widespread, even though we've just seen the tip of it. And so I do have a great panel this morning to talk about this topic, and we'll be, dimensioning AI and its application and relevance within Africa's evolving digital financial services industry. And I think the most appropriate thing to do at this point in time is to give each of my panelists an opportunity, a minute each, to just formally introduce themselves and provide much more color to their background. Okay, maybe I start with Samantha. Ladies first.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our session today. My name is Samantha Keru. I'm a lead business translator with I&M Bank. I have 12 years of banking experience. Formerly worked for NIC Bank, now NCBA. Moved to I&M and joined the analytics team where I've been working for almost 3 years now. My background is in mathematics and computer science, and I'm currently pursuing a master's in psychology.
Fantastic. Russell?
Well, hi everyone, and thank you very much, Terrapin, for organizing such an interesting webinar. And thank you for having me on top of that. So my name is Russell. Currently, I'm looking into the digital banking experience and innovation at Co-operative Bank of Kenya. I'm new to the financial sector. I started off in the telco, and I've worked the gamut of the telecommunication companies, Kenya Data Networks, Ericsson Kenya, Telcom Orange, and my last telco involvement was at Safaricom, where I did lots and lots around innovation and also onto the M-Pesa platform. So as I work at the bank, my really drive and push for the core bank customers and also the bank customers at large is to ensure that the products that we give them are both really relevant to them and things that they can integrate into their daily lives. Maybe just to add, I'm also an avid marathoner. I love running. And the COVID-19 has really disrupted my marathon schedule. Hopefully soon we'll start running. Thank you very much for having me, and let's hope we'll have a fantastic discussion. I'll pause there.
Thanks, Russell. Thanks a lot. And then Robert.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robert Ochieng. So I have over 7 years of experience in the banking sector, and I've also worked in the public sector at the Ministry of Finance on some projects for IFMIS. My area of interest is on personal finance. So just looking at how to make personal finance digitized and immerse ourselves into individual needs, because sometimes products can be created that are just from the supply side. But what we should be looking at is at the dinner table of a family, how many people are there, what needs do they have, and what solutions can we provide for them? Yeah, so it should come from them. And that's where technology now comes in making finance understandable in a layman's language, because no one can run away from finance. Then creating products that can meet the needs of the different value chains of personal finances, of retail customers, and engage them. Because basically each and every customer wants to be engaged. So what can we use in terms of technology to bring value to customers, to be there for them? So we currently have things like robo-advisors. We have quant trading that creates value for investors. So that's where AI comes into play, and it is relatively new in terms of development in financial services sector. There have been some development, but now it is getting to a point where it will soon be pervasive. So it is important that we get ahead by learning and be ready to serve customers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Robert. So I think the most appropriate place to start is a definition of AI. And so what is AI and what is it not? Because it's often misconstrued to mean a couple of other things. And so I'll throw that open and give each one of you an opportunity. Just tell us, what exactly does this mean and what is it not? Samantha?
So artificial intelligence, AI in short, can be defined as a form of technology that allows machines to mimic human behavior or human intelligence. So what basically we're saying is that we're moving away some of the processes that we would do as human beings into the machines. We allow machines to do those processes for us, and these processes usually are the ones that are repetitive. For example, if you come to work in the morning and your first thing is to switch on your machine and then generate a statement, for example, you will just program your computer to sort of know that the first task for the day is generating a statement. So instead of you sitting there and generating this statement, you give that task to the machine. What it is not magic. It can only perform as far as what it has been programmed to do. So you can't sit there and expect this machine to just come up with things that you did not tell it to do or you did not program it to do. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Robert?
Yeah, so I think I'll define AI by giving an example, a practical example. So here is a case where you have a child. So the child puts their hand on a candle and they get burnt. Then tomorrow, when they come and see the candle, they'll be more careful. So that is self-learning. So it's the ability of machines to learn by themselves and mimic human behavior. And it's not explicit programming. Explicit programming is where you tell the child that don't put your hand on the candle, you'll get burnt. But self-learning by machines is where, after seeing different scenarios, they're able to learn as if they are human beings. Yeah.
I love that analogy. As African wisdom brought to AI. And Russell, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, so there's really nothing more to add from what Samantha and Robert have said, really. But perhaps a question that would come out of the definition of AI is, why are we suddenly hearing about it now, right? So maybe to add on what Samantha and Robert has said, I could just maybe tell the attendees that AI has been with us from, I think, the 40s, okay? And it's in the 40s that people started thinking about AI. There are two gentlemen that I can't remember their names right now. There are two gentlemen that first introduced the first model of AI, or artificial neural networks. And with this model, some gentleman by the name of von Neumann developed the first machine. And that was in 1951. So from 1951 up to now, why suddenly in the last decade are we having all these AI? Why are we looking at pushing machines to start doing what a human can do, and what a human can do intellectually, okay? So maybe we'll get into that later, but just to say that in the 60s and the 80s era, much as people were excited about AI, the excitement could not be matched with the technology that was offered that time. And now I think we've had so much advancement in technology that now AI is making a comeback, and we're excited. So let's have machines mimic human beings intelligently. Thank you.
Fantastic. I mean, you guys couldn't have captured it better than the way you've actually done it. Now listening to all three of you, what I can conclude is that AI is actually much more than a productivity enhancer. I would say it is the new factor of production. So that's a new factor beyond what we're taught, what we're taught in school back then. And obviously it is transformational, okay? The ability, or the fact that we can allow machines to be able to learn, to be able to adapt and improve on what we do as human beings means that AI can bring truly exceptional value to a business and to our customers. And that brings me to the second question. And so, since we now know exactly what AI is and what it's not, how important is AI to our businesses? Even before we get into the applications, how important is AI? How relevant?
Let me take that first. I think it's very, very relevant in today's world. Why this is so is because we're looking at improving TATs for customers. We're looking at improving SLAs. We also want to increase the efficiencies for people who work in organizations. So by not implementing or incorporating AI in your organization, then that means you will lag behind in comparison to the competition, right? You won't be able to serve your customers at optimal level, and therefore you find that at the end of the day, you lose value to your customers, you lose value to your shareholders, and eventually you might end up having your business going down. So what I think is for you to be able to survive in any industry, in any organization in this day and age that we are in, then you need to adopt AI. Up to what level now depends on your capacity as an organization, but the fact that you have to adopt it to some extent.
Maybe I'll just add on to that.
Please go ahead.
There's a recent report that our regulator, the banking regulator, did recently, the Central Bank of Kenya. And that report was looking at the growth of bad loans within a period of 1 year, March 2019 to March 2020. The report indicated that bad loans have grown by 11 billion Kenya shillings. I think that's what, 100 million US dollars. And for me, what was very interesting was the fact that even the measures put in place by the banks to ensure that they don't get any bad loans, the growth is still astronomical. On top of that, this is the time where in the Kenyan market, interest rates are the lowest for a period of 13 years now. I think the lowest is around 12%, but the bad loans are still growing. And two of the big banks in this country, I won't mention them, have had their bad loans grow by more than 15 billion Kenya shillings. This is to me was astronomical. And this is where I started thinking, really, we need to start doing business of loaning differently because the customer has also changed. We have, more of millennials, we have more of SMEs, and we have more of businesses who are very not sure of how the business environment looks like. So maybe these are just contributors. And now through AI, this is where AI comes in, and this is where AI can come in and really, really help arrest this kind of bad numbers that we are seeing in this industry. So this is the necessity I really see in AI, especially in the financial sector. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
And to add on
we'll
to
be
what,
coming to where AI will be applicable. But Robert, I mean, do you have any point to add around how important it is before we delve into which areas of financial services can we apply AI? But do you have any additional point around how important or how relevant AI is today?
yes, and again, I'll give two examples just to augment what Samantha and Russell have talked about. Yeah, so first you have two employees. You have John and Michael. So you have John who waits to be told everything to do. Then you have Michael who can actually see ahead and provide solutions. So Michael is like an AI. So you are supposed to predict some problems before they even happen because there are certain patterns that are very common. And for example, if you normally have transactions every 1 second, what happens if 3 seconds have elapsed and you can't see any transaction in a system? It means that you need to have some form of intelligence of predicting certain problems and patterns. And that will really bring to light so many opportunities for the banking sector because there's so many issues that they're having, maybe customer complaints, frauds, or just opportunities to serve customers. So just the ability to provide to provide answers to questions that have not been asked. That is very powerful, and that's where AI comes into play.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. So listening to all of you, what I hear are as follows in terms of its strategic relevance. It will help businesses drive efficiencies. It will help in driving business growth and profitability. It will help in better decisioning with higher level of precision, almost like enhancing judgment and decisioning. And again, this speaks to credit and the example that Robert gave. And I think one more thing that I captured is helping in improving or getting to know our customers better so that we can enhance the sort of services or products that we develop for them and also how we support and serve them. This is good. The next question would be around where and and what outcomes should we expect with the application of AI in these areas in financial services? Anyone can start. Open floor.
I'm sorry, Chidi, I didn't quite get your question. Maybe it's just me, but there's a connection.
Okay, I recognize the connection. Something happened to the connection briefly. So my question is around what are the areas of financial services? I mean, you gave, I think Russell gave an example of credit, or sorry, Robert, of credit decisioning. And I'm saying, broadly speaking, what areas of financial services or our businesses can we apply AI to or artificial intelligence to, and what sort of outcomes or results should we expect with the application of artificial intelligence in these diverse areas? And you can also give examples.
Okay, great. Okay, great. It's clear. So I guess I'll begin this time around, Samantha.
Please go ahead.
So essentially, I mean, there are very many areas that AI come into play, especially in the financial sector. So I'll speak to two that I'm very passionate about. I guess my other panelists will speak to the rest. So the first one, it's what I already mentioned, credit decisions. And given the numbers that I just shared earlier, it's obvious that we need to do something more than what we've been doing to sort of get us to where we need to be, and both help the people who are actually getting these loans and also help banks do business. Smart underwriting decisions, especially on traditionally underserved borrowers, like the millennials. These guys are coming in and you do not know much about them, right? And then secondly, we've seen a growth of digital lending platforms, especially in Kenya. And these guys have always been attractive to the constituency that has always been deemed very risky by the traditional banks, right? So for the banks, essentially, to start serving this underserved constituency, it is very good to go a bit more into what they do, a bit more into what their lifestyles and their spending is, to ensure that you give them not only the credit they deserve, but also the rates that they deserve. I believe that to essentially capture this market, it's important to give customized interest rates, for example, to these customers, so that they feel that they're being treated, as a partner to the bank, just like instead of just a normal customer. The second area that I see is in cybersecurity and fraud. I know there's been a lot of talk in the past 2 or 3 years about open banking and banks opening up, their applications to the fintechs and to the other banks and stuff. Well, this is good. It exposes the bank's data and also applications to many more people than they are used to, than they would want to. So what this introduces then is a scenario where you have so many people accessing your applications and your data, and you have genuine concerns as to who is not only accessing your data, but also transacting around your platforms. So this is where AI will come in. And AI comes in to do what I typically call maybe risk-based authentication. How then do you authenticate your customers from how they access your applications to the kind of transactions they do, the patterns around the transactions they do, and the devices that they use? All these patterns can be collected and sort of modeled in a manner that sort of puts these customers in groups according to the risk that they present to the banking applications. And this then will help you open up your applications and your data to the people that need to be opened up to, so that you make more business, basically. So that's where AI then will come in to help you implement your open banking strategy. I'll pause there.
Fantastic. I mean, that's profound. Robert?
Yeah, so when looking at AI, first, I would like to look at it from two angles. First of all, we need to understand the value chain of the services that customers would need. For example, as an individual retail customer, I would maybe concerned about financial planning, things like budgeting. So how does AI come into play and help me to manage my money better? So what tools can we bring into play to maybe look at the best way that I can do my spending, budgeting? So there are some gamification aspects of this that can be brought into play, whereby from your spending patterns, suggestions can be shared with you that can help you manage your finances better. For example, you can say that for every time that you spend any money that is between 500 Kenya shillings to 1,000, the difference from that amount and 1,000 is actually pushed to your savings account or some investments account. So the key thing first is to understand the value chain, what customers will need. So let me quickly highlight that. So for individuals, things that do concern us as customers, budgeting and planning, which is financial planning. There's wealth management and wealth solutions. Some people want to own homes, so home ownership is very key. Then you have debt management. There are people who have debt issues. Then also people have children. So how do we help them to help their children manage their finances better? There are tools that are out there like compounding that they can use from the go. So how do we embed that into what we have in terms of solutions? You have estate administration and succession planning. So you can profile your customer and classify them, like the people who are approaching the retirement age. What kind of solutions do you have for them, so that you just don't throw everything to all the customers that you have? So career planning again is key for individuals, because whatever they're earning and their age, there are ways that we can challenge the customers to do more with technology and services that we offer as banks. Then the second thing, which I'm very keen on, is about context. For example, in African society, you know that learning is through conversations. So currently there's a lot of transactions in the banking sector. It's just a transactional relationship. We want conversations. So as customers, can we have conversational user interfaces so that we feel like we're not just talking to machines, but we're also talking to a human being, because that is our nature.
Relevant conversation.
Yes, we are very good at learning through apprenticeship. So things like business advisory, how can we bring AI into play so that this knowledge that is out there and is just in people's mind, these case stories that are just being told as anecdotal evidence, how can we bring them into the system so that many people can learn and they can feel like technology is bringing a new way of conversing and helping them to achieve more value as customers. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Samantha?
My panelists, my colleagues have given very good examples. I'm also thinking about in a banking situation where by reviewing customer trends and patterns, then the bank is able to give a better product offering for their customers based on what their likes and dislikes are. I'm thinking about risk management for the bank. For example, in a customer service setup, using AI and by having conversations between customers and the call center staff. Then if a call center staff says something that is outside of what the bank has outlined as a policy when communicating, then this is able to be picked up and corrective action taken. I'm also thinking about things like customer attrition. Using AI, you're able to predict which customers you're likely to lose, and therefore take corrective action by offering maybe discounts or incentives to have these customers stay in the bank, because you are able to address any gaps the customers might be facing. Hi. I hope you got that. I'm not sure whether it's my end.
No, it's fine. I think it happened across board. So continue.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I've given a couple of examples of value attrition, customer attrition, or value retention. I've talked about risk management. I've talked about product recommendations. I'm also very passionate about what Russell was talking about in terms of credit scoring and just checking delinquency or default rate for customers. And this is very key, especially now, given the COVID pandemic that we're currently facing. It's very important to sort of try and protect the bank's provisions.
Fantastic. I think, listening to you guys, it appears, or not appears, it's actually what it is, that artificial intelligence can actually be applied to nearly every segment or every area or part of financial services, from credit to cybersecurity and fraud management, process reengineering, customer service enhancement, customer acquisition, product development, work planning and management, risk, just the entire spectrum of financial services, AI is relevant. In fact, personally, I've had two areas that was actually not mentioned where I've had practical experience and we've used artificial intelligence wisely. I think one of them had to do with distribution, channel management. And so you find today, for example, where between banks and telcos, they have to roll out agency banking networks or agent outlets. What people conventionally do is, oh, wherever I see bank A, that means there are customers there and I can put an outlet. So wherever I see telco A, but you can actually use artificial intelligence to scientifically come up with a distribution plan. And there are a lot of core elements that you can use to do that. And you can do it with high level of precision. And you can distribute your outlets, whether they are agents or ATMs or branches, and you will be able to optimize or tap into the traffic in those locations because you've actually distributed or deployed those outlets in a scientific manner. The other area that I've used it very well has to do with campaigns, marketing campaigns, being able to use artificial intelligence and run campaigns that are specific and targeted to individual customers as well. Good. Now, again, it is clear from all we've talked about that data is a core component of artificial intelligence. Even in terms of all the areas we talked about, we need customer data, we need staff data, we need all manner of data, and so when whether it's from government circles or from even the customer circles, you hear concerns around ethics. I'd say big concern surrounding or a big cloud around AI. Can we dissect that? Okay, what are these concerns and how can they be addressed? Samantha, you can give that a shot.
Okay, I'll get started. So ethics is a dicey area at the moment because first, we need to agree that when we talk about AI, people have a different level of understanding of what AI is. Therefore, when we bring in the concept of ethics, you find that people will say that really you cannot control machines, you cannot train a machine, machines are superior to human beings. But the truth of the matter and the fact of the day is we are not there yet. So when we talk about ethics, my perspective would be to look at the creator of that model, of that system. And here we're talking about machine morality, but remember, machine morality cannot exist without the human behind that model, the creator of that system. So when it comes to ethics, where we are today, we need to be careful, yes, but we also should not be really afraid. And the reason for that is because we can always hold that human behind the model accountable.
Fantastic. Does anyone, between Robert and Russell, you have anything to add around ethics, ethical concerns around AI?
Yeah,
Yes.
Chidi. So, one of the things that I do outside my work sometimes is I watch movies. And there are two movies in particular that I'd like to bring to the fore here. There's one I watch known as Transcendence, and the other one known as iRobot. And if you watch these movies, I'm sure you'll be very scared as to what machines are doing in those movies. How they plan to take over and change things, and also ultimately eliminate the human being, right? So this has always made AI look very, very scary. For those people who are following, there's a spat now between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk about how powerful AI can be if it's given the amount of leverage that these big corporates are planning to give it. Facebook, Microsoft, IBM, all those kind of people. I think essentially, AI is only as good as the amount of data you give it. And for me, I think ethics is important in any technology, not just AI. I think the fear around ethics in AI is because of people imagining what a machine that thinks for itself, in quotes, can do ultimately to the human being. One thing I have seen being done to just reel in this discussion around ethics is the big corporates themselves understand that this is an important thing, and they have set down certain, ethical codes around development of AI and and also the dispensation of AI as a technology. Now that helps, but that doesn't still stop an errant guy out there going to do whatever he needs to do around AI. I think the concern around ethics and AI is just a concern around change, right? So machines will continue getting smarter, regardless of the amount of noise we make around ethics, right? And to me, if you ask me, you go back to, I don't know, the 50s and the 60s and maybe early 70s, the general population was scared of the computer. Granted, it was because it's going to take the jobs, but I think it was more than that. There was that fear. So right now, that fear is just being looked at as an ethical issue rather than a machine issue or where it's going to take our jobs. But ultimately, machines will get smarter. I think for us as human beings, what we need to focus on is how we can make use of smarter machines than how we can stop machines from getting more smarter than they are right now. I'll pause there.
Yeah,
Good. Robert,
okay.
go ahead.
Just to add on to what Samantha and Russell have shared, when looking at ethics, of course, there are those white areas that are very clear that you need to be ethical, things to do with data privacy. There's an example whereby a father had sent their daughter to the supermarket to buy some items. Then later on, the supermarket, based on what the daughter bought, sent the father an SMS, something to do with pregnancy. So that was kind of weird. So since AI deals with a lot of experimentations, there are mistakes that are going to be done. I remember there's a Google algorithm that was able to predict that there's going to be an outbreak of some flu based on the searches that people are making on some area. So sometimes they can make the right predictions, sometimes it can be the wrong one, and they can have drastic implications. So in terms of ethic, the obvious ones should be looked at, and the ones whereby maybe the machine might make an error because it is still learning, we should be patient enough because the models are being optimized and they'll surely get better with time. So you have to be open-minded. Yes.
Very good. I mean, I like, even I'm reasonably comforted by the points that you've also shared. I'm just mindful of time, so I think we can just take maybe 2 more questions before we open the floor to the audience. The other concern that people also have has to do with, and I know, Russell, you touched a bit on that, but it has to do with job losses. There's a general belief that whenever artificial intelligence is implemented, people must lose their jobs. Can we just spend a few minutes to talk about that? Is that valid? Is that a true concern? Maybe Russell, you start because you hinted on it when you spoke about ethics.
Yeah. So whether the concern is valid or not, it really depends on which side of the spectrum you are, right? So, and I'm gonna say it's not only AI, it's any technology. Basically, when something comes in and you do not understand it, you'll be scared of it. And when you see it starting to do what you can potentially do, then you get even more afraid of it, all right? So lots and lots of concerns, especially in banks, and I guess telcos too, usually arise because of AI. Remember when we started off, when we were defining what AI is, it was basically developing a machine that can do what typically a human being does when acting intelligently. So if I know that a machine will come and start doing what I'm doing, of course I'll be concerned, wondering why you're replacing me with a machine. On the business side on the other side, thinks I can have a machine do what 10, 15, 20 people can do in a day, perhaps. I do not know. So it's a cost saving for me. So it really depends on which side of the spectrum you are. However, my personal opinion is around AI technology is, or any other technology, but in particular AI, is with the introduction of AI and with the more possible cases and applications that we're having around AI, it comes with new opportunities, all right? I think what people should focus on ultimately is to upskill and upgrade their skills to be able to handle a world where AI is running things. Because these machines are not gonna run themselves. I think it's important to note that. However, it will need skilled people to run them. So it's very important that you upskill yourself and ensure that you remain relevant to a world that embraces technology. So I don't believe AI brings about job losses. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It actually brings in more jobs. Whether AI comes or not, jobs as they currently are will ultimately change. The jobs don't disappear, they change. So you need also to change to ensure that you remain relevant to the job market. Thank you.
Fantastic. Robert, you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, yes. Yes,
Go ahead.
so I think that's a very good point that Russell has made, and I just want to paint a picture. So let's say Chidi lives on the riverfront, and every day the river has been flowing there, so and he's able to pick something from the river. Then one day he wakes up and finds that the river is not there, but actually the river has been diverted somewhere else. So he can actually get up, go out there and find where the river is now flowing. So that is what happens with opportunities and jobs. And we've actually seen that there's a rise in job opportunities for anthropologists and people in social sciences. If you go to the big tech companies like Facebook and Google, Microsoft actually employs many anthropologists. And I want to give you a story about detergents and the importance of anthropologists in finding patterns. And these patterns are what AI needs. So before some discovery was made, detergent industry, their advertisements used to focus on whitening of clothes. Then one anthropologist noticed that when women were going to remove the clothes from the line, they would smell the clothes first. And that's how the invention of the scent when advertising detergents came into play, and scent became something very important. So there are opportunities everywhere, and these patterns, they'll come from human beings, then they'll be translated into the systems. Then the second thing is that as we speak, 80% of trades, over 80% of trades in the US stock markets, both NASDAQ and then New York Stock Exchange, they're actually being done by what is known as machines, so quant trading. So they're creating wealth for people. So we can actually invest in these companies that are going to disrupt us. If Zoom shares can double within 1 year, it is creating wealth for people. So that's also another perspective to look at it. We have robo advisors, they're creating wealth for people. Actually, probably more wealth than these people could have earned if they were to work and compete with these machines. So it is going to be a win-win. It depends on how we look at it. If the opportunities are in this place today and tomorrow they shift to a different segment, then basically it's about us upskilling and reskilling so that we remain relevant based on the technology trends that we are seeing.
No, this is very good. So what I hear is that AI is not a replacement for employees. Rather, it's a means to derive greater creativity and derive greater value from the workforce. And that's what I hear. So it's not a displacement. It's not a case of either or, but rather it's an enhancement of the capabilities of the employee. So this is great. And then my last question, somebody may have been listening to us over the last 45 minutes, and then he's gonna ask himself, we've never done this. So where do I've seen the value, I've seen the opportunities within my organizations. Where do I go from here? How do I act on this and get it done in my organization? So can we spend the next 5 minutes to just touch on this?
I think I'll go first on this one. So basically, the first thing is about learning, because the issue that we're having with data, even before AI, just data and the ability for people to use data in organizations, is because there's a data literacy issue. So learning is the first step, bringing that to people, because someone will tell you that I've been using my intuition to make decisions and I'm successful. I'm a millionaire or a multi-billionaire. What are you telling me about this thing called data? And you've actually seen sectors where they're being disrupted. So it means that data is becoming very key. Your billions can reduce to millions, and the net worth of an organization can actually come down, or even an individual. So it's very key that first we learn, and there are opportunities to learn. We have the online courses where you can learn things to do with the AI. You can start with Python. For example, personally, I'm very passionate about algorithm trading. So there are courses for that. There is Python, but first you have to know the business case before you go to machines. So that is very, very key. What you have currently, what are the areas of improvements? What are the repetitive tasks? Can you back test the data that you currently have and see patterns? So that is very important, because AI is not magic. If I'm going to trade, for example, in the Kenyan stock market, there's a situation whereby KCB was going to acquire National Bank, and KCB was trading at 44 Kenyan shillings. Yet, if you look at the price at which National Bank was trading and the price at which KCB was going to buy them, there was an anomaly where you could actually make money. So these are patterns that are there, and they're available in different use cases in organizations. So the first step is to learn what AI and machine learning and data science are all about. Then after that, identify scenarios within the organization. Because if you want to climb a mountain, for sure, you can't just get to the top like that. You start with the first and most important step. So buy people on board, bring people on board. Your board members need to know what this is all about, top management, and find a way of gaining consensus so that you are not just working in silos, and you are likely to succeed when there is learning and knowledge about what AI is all about and the value that it can create for an organization in terms of creating efficiencies and also deriving more value from the resources that the organization has deployed.
Fantastic. Russell, Samantha, who wants to go next on this one?
Maybe I'll go next, and I'll just build on what Robert has said. When we started, I did mention that AI is not a recent thing. AI can be traced up to the 50s, okay? Now, if you read the history of AI, you'll notice that during the 60s era, the promise around AI was people were excited about what machines could do. But then in the 80s, people were excited about how AI can then transform business. However, AI didn't really take off in the 60s and the 80s because the promise that people had far outpaced what the technology could deliver. I mean, if you look at quantum computing and you look at the amount of data that was being collected at around that time, it couldn't really support the expectations on AI. But jump to this era, we have faster computers and data is being collected at unprecedented levels. I mean, just look at what Facebook and YouTube are doing with our data and Google, okay? So these things are already there. So the first thing, I think, and especially for the banks, to ensure that now AI is applicable to their, scenarios is to ensure that they've got structured data. You see, AI is only as good as the data you feed it. And banks, some have operated for the longest time possible. I mean, look at Bank. We've been around since the 50s. The amount of data we have, the amount of data we've collected since the 50s is huge. Now, all we need to do is just structure that. And then once it's structured data, it will help out. And looking into this, I remember earlier conversations we were having, Chidi, when you said that some CTO said that the amount of data they had, or the way data is structured in their organization, is just like walking into the library and all the books are on the floor and you're looking for information, right? So that's kind of how most organizations are, especially in Kenya. The data is so unstructured, so implementation of AI is kind of a problem. So the first step for me would be just structure your data. The second thing is experience. And I think Samantha did mention something around experience and customizing, the experiences that you give your customers. I think you should let your customer experiences dictate how you implement your technology. Most often, and when Bank started deliberately looking into digital experience, I noticed that whenever you mentioned digital, immediately everyone was thinking technology. But I flipped that because digital is really the customer experience. What do you want to do with your technology? What do you want to do with your AI? If it is not looking up to improving customer experience or even internal organization efficiency, then you'll find it very difficult to sort of implement the kind of technology that you want. And once you have the experience and the scenarios, as Robert mentioned, it's good to experiment. As organizations, it's good to have an experimentation sort of scenario and budget too, because the only way you realize the importance of this thing and see it for what it is in a tangible form and manner is if you do a bit of experimentation, learn from it, drop the bad, take the good, and move on from there. So data, experience, and experimentation is it for me. Thank you.
Before Samantha comes in, let me just remind the participants that they can send in their questions. You have the Q&A tab. You also have chats or whatever, also by email. Please feel free sending your questions so that we can answer them when we're done. Okay, Samantha?
Yeah, just to add on what both Robert and Russell have said, I mean, they're very right. Everything they've said is very true. But however, how those things can be implemented is by organizations implementing and creating a digital strategy. They need a digital plan. They need to address customer gaps that have been identified so that you are able as an organization to pick AI as a solution that will address specific gaps that you're facing for your customers. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think this brings to an end the questions from me. And at this point, we need to open up the floor to the attendees for their questions. Let me again remind the attendees that they can send in their questions. There's a Q&A tab. There's also the chat. So we have the first question from Robert ISO. And he says, one of the biggest barriers to anti-money laundering is the lack of data sharing amongst financial institutions due to privacy laws. How can AI be used to extrapolate the flow of funds as it is transferred between financial institutions given this constraint? That is loaded. Russell, you want to go? I can see the smile on your face.
Yeah, maybe I'll begin on this, and I could talk a lot more on this, but I'll be very, very, very brief. The thing with the AI, it's only as good as the data you feed it, all right? So if there's a constraint in sharing of the data, then it's really, really a big problem, and especially to the privacy laws. We are seeing most organizations right now, not even organizations, countries coming in with, privacy laws, data privacy laws and stuff like that. In fact, in Kenya, we have one that was done, I think, late last year. You could argue, I was in another forum where somebody argued that all these issues with data is just a way of, government suddenly realizing that other organizations other than the government can actually collect data, because since time immemorial, government has always had this data and there was no issue around data privacy. But now suddenly organizations are coming in and collecting data much better than the government can do. Then they're bringing in laws. But that, you could argue it that way. My take is this. There really needs to be a conversation between various parties, institutions, banks, and everything, to just ensure that the technology serves people as they should. And much as privacy laws might be there, it is also important to understand that ultimately, technology will be used to offer customer experience. So if we can't share the data, somehow, somewhere, this data will be found. Right now, I do not have a direct answer to this, but my recommendation on this will be open dialogue through such, webinars like this one by TradePress and many other platforms that we might have. It always starts from dialogue, and through this dialogue, you get a lot of value. You learn a lot of value around, sharing your data and sharing any other thing that you need to share. Then from there, build it up slowly. Thank you.
Okay, let me just take thank you very much for that. We've got a couple of questions. I just want to make sure we cover as much as possible. There's a question from Dennis Kirill. He says, from your experience, is R a good data science language to build machine learning products in production environments? Robert, can you?
Yes, let me take that. I think it doesn't really matter which programming language. What matters is the packages that are available. For example, you know that Python has got very good packages if you want to do quant trading. So R also is very strong on statistical analysis. So based on what you have in mind, you can actually study the two languages and see which one has got the best features that can provide value for what you want to take to production. So it is not a yes or no answer.
Fantastic. Then I have one from Taiwo Adebayo. He says, as someone who is in the financial services sector, especially in payments, how do I make the transition to AI? How do I garner the right skills? Any resources you had encouraged I tap into as I grow my career in payments? Samantha, can come in there.
Yeah. So we've talked
but
about.
But there's also a follow-up question. It says, yeah, no, it's a follow. Just continue. Please go ahead with the answer.
Okay, so we've talked about upskilling, reskilling, and the good news is that for these AI courses can be found online. We have sites like Udemy, we have Coursera, we have Datacamp. I mean, you just go and pick whatever it is that you feel would be most favorable for you. The only thing maybe, because you say you are in payments, is you only need to consider things like time to invest. For example, if you work for 8 hours, then you need to pick a course or a university or a site that allows you to do self-learning, self-paced learning, as opposed to a structured number of hours in a day. But at the end of the day, there's so many forums that offer online courses. You only need to just Google and decide where you want to get started.
Yeah, and perhaps Chidi, just to add on to what Samantha said, and to Adebayo, I believe you said that, there's that part where you can enroll to courses. But I really never like doing courses because it's very structured for me. So basically how I got into it is I started getting into projects that are AI based. So currently I'm volunteering with a company in Kenya that is looking at building the first sort of driverless car. And it's a project that we work on like every Friday. And the amount of information I have learned through this project is humongous, right? And I've learned so much. So this is one of the ways you can actually, you know, get into it, learn about it, and also meet industry professionals who know other opportunities that are arising out of the technology that you're learning. Thank you.
Allow me to add one thing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So currently at the there is a World Quant University which provides scholarship for learning masters on financial engineering, MSc financial engineering, and actually they have a very intensive course that covers different areas of the financial services sector. I know several Africans and even Kenyans and people globally have enjoyed this scholarship. I personally applied and got it. So there are a lot of opportunities. And of course, one of the best ways to learn is that who are the top 10 data scientists or people that you look up to in your country when it comes to this field? Can you be in a network where you can interact with them so that you learn faster? Yeah, so that's also an opportunity to be in the right communities, because that creates focus and you learn faster if you have the right people who have done whatever you're trying to do before. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julia. I believe we've maxed out our time, and yes. And so at this point, I would like to thank everyone, the panelists, Robert, Russell, Samantha, for a great job. Essentially, you've torn apart artificial intelligence, and it's been what I call an AI 101 class for financial institutions. And also, I would like to thank the attendees. I know we had attendees on this platform and also on YouTube. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for your listening. This is well appreciated. And I also thank the Terrapin team led by Julia. And we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Chidi. And a huge thank you to yourself and all panelists for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed being part of it. That is the end of the webinar for today. Again, thank you to all of our panelists, our moderator, and our audience for joining. The webinar will be accessible via our website for on-demand viewing. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Our next webinar will be running Tuesday, the 23rd of June, and we'll be looking at building loyalty and engagement through transaction banking. So again, a huge thanks for everyone for joining today, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.